Hi, welcome to today's session. So today we're going to talk about accidents. We all don't want them to happen, of course, but sometimes they do. So what I want to do is prepare you for that unfortunate event where you do have a crash, and what you need to do in those instances. So we're going to talk about accidents. We're going to talk about proper drug and alcohol testing. We're going to talk about procedures and some examples of different crashes so that you are very well aware of what you need to do, whether it's a testable event, non-testable event. I like going through these exercises. So that's what we're going to do today. So what someone will do to get a double cheeseburger. So some of these crashes, I have in here some examples of some crashes that I just think were very interesting. I just love this on the road to success. There's no shortcuts. But you know, interesting pictures anyway. So let's talk about some statistics. So the statistics, an average cost of a non-fatal crash is $195,258. So this is 2015 stats, but $195,000 is how much it actually costs. Now this is not litigation costs. This is not how much you get sued for. This is just actual costs, you know, in time and research and investigations, things like that is what the average statistical cost is of a crash for non-fatal. The average cost of a fatal crash is $3,604,518. The number of fatalities involved in a CMV crash was 147,094 in 2015. The highest jury award so far to date is $281 million. So this is how much a jury has actually awarded a family. And I do know this case. I was not involved in the case, so I don't want to say I actually know it very well. It was a South Texas case where a piece of the trailer in front of the pickup behind them came off, and it went through the windshield and impaled the passenger of that pickup truck. The family, of course, filed litigation, and the jury awarded $281 million. Texas did have the highest number of crashes in 2015 of 16,077 crashes. So if you want to get statistics, if you go to the FMCSA website, you can get statistics on, you know, pretty much everything. How many crashes there were, fatalities, who was involved, what, you know, there's a ton of statistics out there. So this is where I get those, is from directly from the FMCSA website. So some critical reasons that they found for crashes that involve large trucks and passenger vehicles was the driver. I mean, the majority of the issue, so you have, you know, just under 90% that were large trucks, and, you know, just over 90% were passenger vehicles. And it was the driver was the problem. If you notice in this graph, though, passenger vehicles were a little bit more at fault than, say, the large truck drivers were. But still, most of the issues were not vehicle issues. They were not the environment. It wasn't because it was raining or snowing. It wasn't because the vehicle had maintenance issues, things like that. It was operator error, whether it be on the passenger vehicle side, on the four-wheeler side, or on the actual big truck side. It was driver error. So training your drivers, getting them, you know, trained up is really important. So let's talk about the definitions of an accident, because, you know, if you're just sitting here and you're thinking accident, you know, an accident's an accident. Of course, I know what an accident is. The FMCSA actually defines it just a little bit differently. So in order to be qualified as a DOT recordable accident, it needs to have the following things. And I'm going to read you the actual definition. Now you can read this but yourself, but it's an occurrence involving a commercial motor vehicle. So that's point one. And a lot of, you know, you even go to some drug testing companies and some organizations that are actually drug testing organizations, and they tell you every crash is a, you know, drug testable event. It's not. So for first off, it has to be a commercial motor vehicle, and we've already defined the commercial motor vehicle as anything over 10,000 pounds. So anything 10,001 pounds or more that's operating in commerce is what's considered a commercial motor vehicle. If you're not operating for business purposes, you're not operating in commerce, you're not using company equipment, then of course it has nothing to do with the DOT. But this is for commercial motor vehicle purposes. In order for it to be considered a DOT recordable crash, it has to also include either a fatality, a bodily injury, including treatment directly from the scene. Not treatment 2 days later because their neck hurts. It has to be immediately directly from the scene, medical treatment directly from the scene of the accident. Or one or more of the vehicles incurred disabling damage requiring a tow truck. A lot of people get this wrong as well. They think, well, a tow truck came, so it must have meant it was disabling damage. Be careful that disabling damage doesn't mean, well, the driver was found to have, got put out of service so he couldn't operate anymore, so we had to have a tow truck move it. That's not the same thing. It had to be disabling damage. Just because somebody wants their vehicle towed doesn't mean it required it to be towed because of disabling damage. So just make sure it follows all three of those. For first question should always be, is it a commercial motor vehicle? Second question, was there a fatality? Was there a bodily injury requiring treatment directly from the scene? Or was there a tow truck involved? If one of those three things have been met, and it's a CMV, then yes, it meets the definitions of a DOT recordable crash under 390.5. Now, there's also state regulations. So state regulations, it might have your definition of a commercial motor vehicle isn't until you reach 26,000 pounds. Like in Texas, it's 26,000 pounds, and in various states, New Mexico, other states, it's 26,000 pounds. But just to be clear here, for accident purposes in all states, in every state, whether you're interstate or intrastate carrier, for accident purposes, it's any vehicle over 10,001 pounds or more. That's what is considered to be a crash. So any of your vehicles is what's going to consider to be a commercial motor vehicle. So is it a commercial motor vehicle over 10,000 pounds? And did it involve one of those three things, the fatality, bodily injury? So a lot of people say, fatality, tow truck, ambulance. They kind of think of it that way. Nurse, hearse, tow, something like that. But, everybody has those little things that they like to apply to it. But whatever it may be, as long as it follows those items, then you're considered under 390.5 to be in a DOT recordable crash. So whenever the DOT comes, if they come to do a compliance review or an investigation, and even after a crash, you may have litigation, you want to make sure that you have everything 100%. All your paperwork's there, everything's there, all good to go, because that crash may, for one, bring the DOT to your office or to your location to do a compliance review post-crash. So one of the things that you have to have is an accident roster. Whether you have any crashes or not, you have to have this roster. So a DOT recordable accident register, it has to have these following things. So you can do it on an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use a software like DOT Ready. You can use your existing software if you do have existing software. But at the very least, you should have these items on it. You should have the accident date, the driver's name, the state that it occurred in, the nearest city, number of fatalities. Even if they were 0, you have to put 0. Number of injuries, was hazmat released, yes or no? Was the vehicle towed, yes or no? I actually like to put some extra columns on here. So, for me personally, whenever I was using Excel spreadsheets, and I used them for years, I actually also had, in addition to, did the driver get a moving citation? I would have that column in there. And then, was a DOT drug test ordered? And then put yes or no. And if it wasn't, I would put my notes in the next column that said why a DOT drug test or alcohol test was not ordered, because you have to have that as well. If you do not get the DOT drug test done whenever it's been required to, and we're going to go over all of that, then you have to document why it wasn't done. So at the very least, I would have it on here and have your notes on here. Preferably, you would have a documentation form that you actually filled out and put in your files. But like I said, if you use some kind of software, DOT Ready software actually does this all for you. You can fill all this stuff out on your phone digitally while you're at the accident scene, and it does kind of all the work for you and says, yes, a DOT drug test is required or not, which is kind of cool. So, but at the very least, have your spreadsheet with all of this information on it. You can add columns whenever the DOT comes. If you want to hide the columns, that's fine. But at least have this basic information on here because it is required by DOT.